We are back reading our Native American unit. Please make sure that you look at page 27 in your workbook and make sure you go over the vocabulary so you're familiar with that before we read. Today we're going to be reading about tales from the Great Plains. And remember that in ancient and past civilizations, as we've talked about before, that people made up stories and they tried to explain things. They didn't have scientific evidence and proof of things. They didn't have the type of technology and everything that we have now, and so they made up stories. And today we're going to be reading about tales of the Great Plains. So remember, the Great Plains is the middle section of that country according to your map on page 9 in your workbook, so you can check that out as well. Our big question for learning today: what do the Native American stories reveal about the culture of the Comanche and the Lakota Sioux Indians? Here we go. Chapter 3. The image of a brave warrior on horseback gazing over his beloved prairie or canyon is perhaps one of the things that comes to mind when we think of Native Americans. Horses were and remain essential to many Native American cultures. But there was a time long ago when Native Americans did not know about horses. When Native Americans first saw the Spanish conquistadors on their horses, they wondered if man and horse were one beast, for they had never seen a human riding any kind of animal. The Comanche soon realized this was not true, but many years would pass before they learned to talk to the horses and ride them like the Spaniards. There once was a great horse that all Comanche feared. This horse ran wild on the prairies, and none of the Comanche would go near him, for he was fierce and powerful. They let him roam and never tried to catch him. The horse was easy to identify because he always wore a saddle and the remnants of a blue silk blanket on his back. This is a story of how the horse with the blue blanket came to roam free on the prairie. The Swift Blue One. This is a Comanche tale. One day, a brave young Comanche warrior was out hunting when he saw a Spanish soldier riding on a horse. The soldier wore heavy metal armor, and he carried a gun and a long, sharp sword. Perhaps this soldier was lost, or perhaps he was a scout sent to discover what was over the next hill. The young Comanche warrior and his people considered the Spanish to be enemies, for the Spanish, with their guns, sharp steel swords, and powerful horses, sometimes attacked the Comanche camps. Fear and anger rushed through the Comanche's veins, and he rose from his hiding place in the tall grass and shot an arrow at the Spaniard. The arrow found its way through a crack in the soldier's armor, and he fell from his horse to the ground with a loud thud. Wounded, he moaned in pain. His horse stood over him and did not move. The Comanche wanted to approach the Spaniard to inspect the strange weapons and armor, but when he drew near, the horse snorted angrily and beat his front hooves on the ground. The Comanche was afraid of the horse, and he backed away. He wanted the horse to leave. So he snarled and growled and yelled at him, but the horse still did not budge. The Comanche did not speak the horse language, and he did not know what to do next. The Spaniard could see that the Comanche wanted to talk to the horse. Using sign language, the Spaniard told the Comanche that he would teach him the horse language if the Comanche would spare his life. The Comanche agreed. The Spaniard taught the Comanche the words the people used to make the horse go and stop, walk, and gallop. The Comanche repeated the words again and again until he knew them and could say them to the horse. The Comanche tried to save the Spaniard's life, but the arrow was too deep. He died anyway. The horse had a soft blue blanket and a saddle on its back. The Comanche did not remove either because he thought the horse wanted them. Then the Comanche got onto the horse's back and spoke the horse language, and the horse carried him back to camp. The other Comanche were amazed when they saw him. He told them his story and showed them how he learned to make the horse go and stop, walk, and gallop. After that, the Comanche warrior always rode the horse, and he became a fearsome warrior and a great hunter. He named the horse the Swift Blue One because he was as fast as the wind. The other warriors were afraid of the horse, and they thought he would ride over them and crush them with his big hooves. One day the warrior was killed in battle, but the Swift Blue One survived. The other Comanche were still afraid of the horse, so they set him free to roam on the prairie. They would see him out there sometimes, running as fast as the wind with a saddle and a blue blanket on his back. In time, more horses escaped from the Spanish soldiers, and these horses joined the Swift Blue One out on the prairie. He became their chief, and they followed him everywhere. The Swift Blue One's herd grew and grew until there were too many horses to count. Eventually, other Comanche learned the horse language, and the horse culture spread. Many of the horses ridden by the Sioux, Apache, Pawnee, and other tribes of the Great Plains and beyond are the descendants of the Swift Blue One. Here's another tale. It's called White Buffalo Calf Woman, and this is from the Lakota Sioux tribe. On the Great Plains among the Lakota and other Sioux nations, it was customary for young people to embark on a vision quest. A vision quest helped to guide a young person's actions and decisions as an adult. The vision quest was just one of 7 sacred ceremonies practiced by the Lakota. According to Lakota legend, the people learned these 7 ceremonies from White Buffalo Calf Woman. Many years ago, when the Sioux people were young and had not learned their way in the world, the bands of the Lakota tribe met for a council. This was during a terribly hot summer when the land was parched and the buffalo had moved so far away that the people could not find them. This was before the Sioux had horses, so they had to travel on foot, and sometimes they could not keep up with the buffalo. 2 brave young men went out to scout for the buffalo. They searched everywhere, but they could find no signs of buffalo or anything else to eat. One day they saw a hill and decided to climb up to see what they could see. In the distance, they spied something strange coming toward them. At first, they could only make out a small speck, and they could not tell whether it was moving on the ground or in the air. As it neared, they saw it was a human figure. As it came nearer still, they could see that it was a beautiful young woman. She wore clothing of bright white buckskin decorated with beautiful, colorful designs. 2 dark braids of hair dangled down, and she had red dots painted on each cheek. The 2 men could see that she was no ordinary woman. They realized that she was a wakan, a sacred and powerful thing. One of the men trembled with fear as the wakan stranger approached. The other, however, was smitten with love. "She is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen," he told his friend. "I want to marry her." "Do not go near her," the other said. "You must respect her and do as she says." But the love-struck man did not listen to these wise words. Instead, he approached the wakan stranger. Suddenly, a cloud of smoke enveloped both of them. The other man could not see through the smoke, but when it finally cleared, the woman was alone, and all that remained of his friend was a pile of scorched bones. Truly afraid, the young man raised his bow and pointed an arrow at her, but she said, "Do not harm me. I am White Buffalo Calf Woman, and I bring good things for you and your people." The young man dropped his bow and listened, comforted by her kind words. "Go home and tell your chief to raise the medicine teepee and prepare for my arrival. In 4 days I will bring my gifts to your people." So the young man hurried home and shared the news. Some people did not believe him. They thought he must be crazy with hunger, but the chief heard the words and commanded his people to raise the great medicine teepee. the largest teepee, which they used for the holiest ceremonies. Sure enough, 4 days later, the people saw the white buffalo calf woman approaching the camp. In her arms, she carried a large bundle. The chief invited her into the medicine teepee. Inside, she told the people to make an altar of red earth in the middle of the teepee and to place a buffalo skull upon it. She also told them to make a small rack using 3 sticks. Then she opened her bundle and removed a special object, the sacred pipe called chanumpa she had placed on the rack. Into the pipe she put bark of the red willow tree, and she placed a buffalo chip on the fire. The buffalo chip made the everlasting fire, the fire to be passed from generation to generation. She then lit the pipe. The smoke of this pipe is the breath of the Great Spirit. Tonkashila, she said. She taught the people to pray using the sacred pipe. With your feet on the ground and the smoke of the pipe rising to the sky, this pipe forms the connection between you and the Great Spirit. She taught them the pipe-filling song and how to raise the pipe toward the grandfather sky and then toward grandmother earth and then all 4 directions. She continued, the wooden stem of the pipe represents all the things that grow on the earth. The bowl at the end of the stem is the buffalo, which is the flesh and blood of your people. 12 feathers hang from the stem represent the spotted eagle, messenger of the Great Spirit. And engraved in the bowl there are 7 circles. These are the 7 sacred ceremonies you will practice with the pipe. These are the 7 ceremonies she taught the people. The sacred pipe ceremony, the sweat lodge, the vision quest, the sun dance, the making of relatives, the keeping of the soul, and the preparing of a girl for womanhood. These are the 7 ceremonies practiced by the Lakota Sioux, which they learned from White Buffalo Calf Woman. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Tomorrow we will read chapter 4. Make sure that after reading today you work on workbook page 29.